The curious cartographer Zara. Thex pressed her delicate fingers against the holographic display, watching as thousands of star systems rotated slowly in the air before her. The blue points of light represented explored worlds, mapped trade routes, and documented civilizations across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Everything appeared normal and complete until her violet eyes traced the outer edge of the Orion sector. There, the map simply ended. A thick, crimson line marked the boundary, like a scar across space. Beyond it lay nothing but empty darkness on every chart she had ever examined. The words human territory appeared in small neutral letters next to the line, but no details followed. No star positions, no trade routes, no exploration data. Just vast, unmarked void. Zara had worked at the Central Galactic Mapping Consortium for nearly 4 years. She had helped chart nebulae, plot safe passages through asteroid fields, and document the locations of dozens of newly discovered worlds. Her species, the Velicians, were natural cartographers with their enhanced spatial awareness and obsessive attention to detail. Yet in all her time here, she had never questioned why this particular section remained blank on every single map produced by every single species in the known galaxy. She pulled up another chart from the Kethvar military archive. Same red line, same empty space. She tried the Merchant Guild's navigation database. Identical results. The Independent Explorers Union, the Academic Research Collective, even the pirate smuggler routes that were supposed to show everything. Every single map stopped at exactly the same boundary. Strange, Zara muttered to herself, her melodic voice echoing in the quiet mapping chamber. What's strange, child? Came a deep, rumbling voice from behind her. Zara turned to see Mentor Grix approaching her workstation. The elderly Corvani moved slowly on his powerful legs, his thick gray skin marked with the wisdom scars of his people. Grix had been mapping. Space longer than most civilizations, had possessed faster than light travel. His knowledge of galactic geography was legendary throughout the consortium. The human boundary, Zara said, pointing at the red line. Why don't we have detailed maps of their territory? Surely someone has explored that region in the past few centuries. The exploration guilds have been to every other corner of the galaxy, Mentor. Grix stopped walking. His large dark eyes focused on the chart, then on Zara's face. For a very long moment he said nothing. The silence stretched uncomfortably as the old Corvani's expression grew troubled. We have important work to complete, Grix finally said, his voice carrying an edge she had never heard before. The Andromeda trade route requires new calculations for the stellar drift patterns. But Mentor, I'm genuinely curious about this. Mapping gap. In all my studies, I've never encountered such a large, unmapped region. There must be historical expedition records or survey data. Someone has to have drop it. The command came out sharp and final, stopping Zara mid-sentence. Some regions are better left unmapped, young one. Some boundaries exist for reasons beyond simple cartography. Mentor Grix walked away without another word, leaving Zara alone with her questions and a growing sense that she had stumbled onto something far more significant than a simple mapping oversight. In all her time working with him, she had never seen the wise old Corvani refuse to discuss any aspect of galactic geography. His reaction seemed almost fearful. Over the next several days, Zara found herself unable to concentrate on her regular assignments. Her mind kept returning to the blank space and her mentor's strange warning. During her rest periods, she began searching through the consortium's historical archives, looking for any information about the unmapped region. What she discovered made the mystery even deeper. The blank space had not always existed. Maps from 300 years ago showed star systems, trade routes, and exploration notes throughout the region now marked as human territory. There were detailed surveys, mineral assessments, and even tourism guides for several worlds. But exactly 250 years ago, something had changed. Every map created after that date showed the same empty void. Zara dug deeper into the archives, accessing records that required higher security clearances. She found mission reports from various species describing successful mapping expeditions to human space. The reports detailed normal exploration activities, scientific surveys, and even cultural exchange programs. Then, without explanation, all such missions had simply stopped. The final reports often ended abruptly, sometimes mid-sentence, as if the expeditions had been recalled or canceled without warning. The pattern was consistent across every species' records. The Xanthari had stopped mapping human space. So had the Altarians, the Vectar, and even the notoriously curious Felixians. Every single spacefaring civilization had simultaneously decided to halt all exploration of one specific region of the galaxy. Zara needed answers, but approaching Mentor Grix again seemed unwise. Instead, she decided to seek information from an unexpected source. The consortium's database listed Dr. Sarah Chen as a human xenosociologist working at the Neutral Research Station Harmony Point. Perhaps a direct conversation with a human could provide insights into their culture and territory. She composed a careful message explaining that she was a cartographer interested in learning about human society for academic purposes. To her surprise, Dr. Chen replied within hours, seeming genuinely pleased to meet someone interested in human culture. They arranged a video call for the following day. When Dr. Chen's face appeared on the screen, Zara was struck by how ordinary the human looked. 2 eyes, 1 mouth, hair covering the top of her head, and skin that was neither scaled nor furred. She smiled warmly and spoke in a friendly, enthusiastic tone. "Hello, Zara. I'm so excited to meet you. It's wonderful when other species show interest in human culture. What would you like to know about us?" "Well," Zara began carefully, "I'm curious about daily life in human society. What do your people do for nourishment and recreation?" Dr. Chen's smile grew wider. "Oh, we have incredibly diverse diets. We eat plants, of course, but we also consume meat from various animals. We raise cattle, pigs, chickens, and sheep specifically for food production. Many humans also enjoy hunting wild animals for sport and sustenance. My husband loves deer hunting every autumn season." Zara's delicate features went pale. Her species, like most in the galaxy, had evolved from peaceful herbivorous ancestors. The concept of deliberately killing other living creatures for food was almost incomprehensible to her. You kill animals to consume them?" "Certainly," Dr. Chen replied, looking puzzled by the question. "Humans are omnivores. We require protein from both plant and animal sources for optimal health. Different cultures have different preferences, but meat consumption is universal among human societies." "Don't your people eat meat?" "No," Zara whispered, her voice barely audible. "We cultivate nutrients from minerals and plant matter. We would never harm another living being for sustenance." Dr. Chen nodded as if this were perfectly normal information. "Fascinating. Different evolutionary paths, I suppose. Anyway, for recreation, humans enjoy many activities. Sports are extremely popular. We have football, where teams compete to control territory through physical contact. Boxing, where individuals fight hand-to-hand until one cannot continue. Racing, where we pilot vehicles at dangerous speeds for excitement. We also enjoy entertainment media about conflict and adventure. War movies are some of our most popular films." Zara stared at the screen in growing horror. This friendly, helpful human was casually describing activities that would be considered deeply disturbing by every civilized species she knew. "You enjoy watching conflict and violence as entertainment?" "Oh, yes." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Humans love stories about overcoming challenges through determination and fighting spirit. We have thousands of films about battles, military heroes, and warriors who save their people through combat. Action movies are incredibly popular. There's something inspiring about watching heroes face impossible odds and triumph through courage and strength." The conversation continued for another hour, with Dr. Chen enthusiastically sharing details about human history, culture, and daily life. She spoke of their past filled with constant warfare, their competitive nature in all activities, their love of dangerous sports and risky behaviors. She described how human children played games involving mock combat, how human architecture was designed to withstand attacks, and how carrying weapons for protection was considered normal in many human societies. Throughout the discussion, Dr. Chen remained perfectly pleasant and helpful. She clearly meant no harm and was genuinely excited to share her culture with someone from another species. But everything she described sounded like the behavior of the most violent and dangerous species imaginable. When the call ended, Zara sat in stunned silence. The human had been kind, intelligent, and eager to help. She had answered every question honestly and openly. But her casual descriptions of activities that other species would consider horrifying had left Zara deeply disturbed. Meanwhile, billions of light years away, Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the human exploration vessel Pioneer, monitoring the edge of human space. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as his crew tracked the various shipping lanes and patrol routes that marked their territory's boundaries. "Contact approaching from Galactic North," reported Lieutenant Jennifer Park from her sensor station. "Single ship, looks like a Zenthari research vessel." Marcus nodded. "Standard protocol. Monitor their approach and assist if needed." The Pioneer moved smoothly through space toward the approaching vessel. As they drew closer, Marcus could see that the alien ship appeared to be functioning normally but was moving very slowly, as if the crew was uncertain about their navigation. "They're sending a distress signal," Jennifer reported. "Engine problems and navigation system failures. Open a channel," Marcus ordered. The main screen flickered, showing the bridge of the Zenthari ship. 4 beings with blue skin and large, expressive eyes looked back at them. The captain, identified by his more elaborate uniform, spoke first. "This is Research Captain Vex of the Zenthari Vessel Seeker. We have experienced multiple system failures and require assistance." Marcus smiled in what he hoped was a reassuring manner. "This is Captain Webb of the human ship Pioneer. We're here to help. What do you need?" Captain Vex's eyes widened slightly when he heard the word human, but he maintained his composure. "Our navigation computer has malfunctioned, and our power systems are operating at reduced capacity. We need replacement components and technical assistance." "No problem at all," Marcus replied easily. "We'll transfer whatever you need. Lieutenant Park, prepare a full assistance package. Include spare parts, power cells, food supplies, and updated navigation charts." Over the next several hours, the human crew worked efficiently to help the stranded aliens. They provided technical expertise, replaced damaged components, and even shared detailed star charts to help the Zenthari find their way safely home. The human ship was clearly powerful, with advanced technology and weapon systems that could have easily destroyed the alien vessel, yet the crew showed no aggression or hostility. Captain Vex watched the humans work with growing unease. They were helpful, skilled, and remarkably generous with their assistance. Their ship was obviously designed for both exploration and combat, with heavy armor and advanced defensive systems, yet they used their capabilities only to help others. Something about their casual competence with dangerous technology and their matter-of-fact approach to potentially lethal situations made him deeply uncomfortable. When the repairs were completed, Marcus personally escorted the Zenthari ship back to the boundary of human space. "Safe travels," he said over the radio. "Try to stay on established routes. Space can be unpredictable, and it's better to avoid unnecessary risks." The Zenthari ship crossed back into neutral space, and Marcus watched them go with satisfaction. He had no way of knowing that his simple act of kindness had left the alien crew profoundly disturbed by their encounter with human normalcy. Back on the Seeker, Captain Vex sat in his command chair, trying to understand his growing sense of unease. The humans had been perfectly polite and helpful. They had repaired his ship and provided everything he needed to continue his mission, safely. So why did he feel so unsettled by the encounter? Perhaps it was the way they had worked so efficiently with technology that could have been used as weapons. Maybe it was how their ship looked like it was built for war, even though they used it for peaceful exploration. Or maybe it was something else entirely. Something he couldn't quite identify, but that made every instinct scream warnings about getting too close to human territory. He made a careful note in his official log. Encountered human patrol vessel at territorial boundary. Received excellent technical assistance. Recommend avoiding human space in future survey missions for unspecified safety reasons. When his crew asked for clarification about the safety concerns, Captain Vex found himself unable to explain his reasoning. He simply knew with absolute certainty that some boundaries existed for very good reasons that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Back at the Central Galactic Mapping Consortium, Zara continued staring at the blank space beyond the red line, unaware that her mentor Grix was watching her from across the chamber with increasingly worried eyes. Her conversation with Dr. Chen had raised far more questions than it had answered, and her growing obsession with the unmapped region was beginning to affect her work performance. The mystery of human space had become personal now. She needed to understand why the galaxy's greatest explorers had all simultaneously decided to stop mapping one particular region. She needed to know what lay beyond that red line that was so disturbing that even the most curious species avoided it entirely. Her research was far from over. In fact, she was beginning to realize that she had only scratched the surface of a secret that the entire galaxy seemed determined to keep hidden. The diplomatic nightmare. For 3 weeks, Zara had been unable to focus on anything except the mystery of the unmapped human territory. Her regular work suffered as she spent every available moment searching through increasingly obscure archives and historical databases. Finally, she discovered a way to access restricted files through an old backup system that had been forgotten during a recent security upgrade. What she found in those classified archives made her blood run cold. The files were marked with the highest security classifications she had ever seen: final survey reports, human territory exploration, classification level, absolute restriction. The dates showed they were nearly 200 years old, and the expedition leader was listed as Admiral Corvin Thane of the United Exploration Fleet, one of the most legendary figures in galactic exploration history. The first report seemed routine enough. Admiral Thane described approaching human space with a massive scientific fleet of 27 ships, carrying over 800 crew members from 12 different species. Their mission was to conduct a comprehensive survey of human territory and establish formal diplomatic and trade relationships. But as Zara read deeper into the files, the reports began to change in tone and content. Day 12. We have observed human vessels at the territorial boundary. Their ship designs are unlike anything in our databases. Even civilian merchant vessels appear to be heavily armed and armored. When we inquired about this through diplomatic channels, human representatives explained that space is a dangerous place and proper preparation is essential for survival. They seemed genuinely confused by our concern about their military-style construction. They asked us why our ships looked so fragile and vulnerable. Zara's hands trembled as she continued reading. Day 18. Humans invited our diplomatic team to observe their recreational activities as part of cultural exchange protocols. We attended an event called auto racing, where humans pilot ground vehicles at speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour around a closed circuit. During the 3-hour event, we witnessed 17 crashes, several of which appeared fatal. The human spectators cheered loudest when vehicles exploded or rolled over multiple times. When we expressed horror at the apparent casualties, our human hosts laughed and assured us that the drivers were probably fine and would be back racing next week if they weren't too banged up. We had to provide medical attention to 4 crew members who fainted during the event. The reports continued for months, each entry more disturbing than the last. Admiral Thane documented his fleet's growing psychological trauma as they were exposed to what humans considered normal daily life. Day 34. We attended a human sporting event called mixed martial arts fighting. 2 humans entered a cage and proceeded to beat each other unconscious while thousands of other humans watched and cheered. The violence was so intense that several of our Zalarian crew members required sedation afterward. When we asked human spectators why they enjoyed watching such brutality, they explained that it demonstrated skill, courage, and the triumph of the human spirit. They invited us to attend a boxing match the following week, which they assured us would be much more civilized because the fighters only used their fists. Day 47. Human food preparation customs are deeply disturbing. We observed a social gathering called a barbecue, where humans cooked the flesh of multiple animal species over open flames while consuming fermented plant substances that altered their mental state. Several intoxicated humans began engaging in physical competitions and challenges that appeared designed to cause injury. This was considered normal social behavior. Our xenobiologist, Dr. Kellen, suffered a complete nervous breakdown and had to be placed in medical isolation. Day 61. Human children engage in organized activities that other species would classify as combat training. They participate in games where teams attempt to physically overpower each other to control territory or objects. Sports like football and rugby involve deliberate collisions between participants at high speed. Human parents encourage this behavior and cheer when their offspring successfully tackle or physically dominate other children. The concept of competitive violence as childhood development is incomprehensible to our psychological specialists. As Zara read deeper into the files, she began to understand the full scope of what Admiral Thane's expedition had encountered. The humans weren't hostile or aggressive toward other species. In fact, they went out of their way to be helpful, friendly, and accommodating to their alien visitors. But their definition of normal daily life included activities that other species would consider evidence of severe psychological trauma or dangerous mental illness. Day 89. We have reached Earth, the human homeworld. I lack adequate words to describe what we have observed. The entire planet appears to be one massive fortress. Every city is built with defensive walls, underground tunnel systems, and integrated weapon installations. When we asked about this architecture, humans explained that their cities were designed to survive natural disasters, enemy attacks, and zombie apocalypses. They spoke of attacks on civilian populations as if they were common weather patterns. Our urban planning specialist, Dr. Yenna, has requested immediate transfer back to our home fleet. Day 105. Human domestic arrangements are beyond our comprehension. They share their living spaces with carnivorous predators they call pets. These creatures possess sharp teeth and claws capable of inflicting serious injury, yet humans allow them to live in close proximity to their young. They feed these animals daily portions of meat and encourage them to play aggressively. When we expressed concern about the obvious danger, humans petted the creatures affectionately and said they were loyal family members. Our child development expert, Dr. Ricks, has submitted a formal request for psychiatric evaluation. The final entries in Admiral Thane's report were the most disturbing of all. Day 156. We have completed our comprehensive survey of human space. I must report that humans pose no direct threat to other galactic civilizations. They are genuinely kind, helpful, and interested in peaceful cooperation. This finding makes our observations even more troubling. Everything we have documented represents normal, everyday human behavior. They do not consider themselves violent or dangerous. They view their lifestyle as perfectly reasonable and cannot understand why other species find it disturbing. Our inability to adapt to their environment is not due to hostility, but to fundamental incompatibility between human normalcy and the psychological needs of other species. Day 163. Final recommendation: human space should be designated as permanently off-limits to standard exploration and cultural exchange programs, not because humans represent a threat to other species, but because prolonged exposure to human society causes severe psychological trauma in non-human personnel. 17 of our crew members have requested permanent psychiatric treatment. 34 others have asked for early retirement from space service. I myself will require extensive therapy to process what we have witnessed. Humans are the most terrifying species we have ever encountered, precisely because they are so helpful and friendly while living lives that should be impossible to survive. Day 167. Humanity's genuine kindness makes them more frightening than any enemy we have faced. They offer their friendship freely and cannot comprehend why other species seem afraid of them. They want to help everyone and share their culture openly. This makes it impossible to maintain safe psychological distance. I recommend that all future contact with humans be limited to neutral territory and conducted only by specially trained Diplomatic personnel with extensive psychological preparation. The file ended there. According to the records, Admiral Thane and his surviving crew members had returned home and immediately classified their findings at the highest security level. Within 5 years, the Galactic Council had quietly agreed to halt all exploration of human territory. The decision had been presented as a diplomatic courtesy, respecting human privacy and territorial sovereignty. But Zara now understood the truth. The blank space on every map wasn't about diplomacy or territorial respect. It was about survival. The galaxy's finest explorers had encountered a species so fundamentally different from their own that prolonged contact caused psychological damage that couldn't be repaired. As she sat in the darkness of her office, staring at the classified files, Zara felt something breaking inside her own mind. The knowledge of what lay beyond the red line was too much to process. She understood now why Mentor Grix had warned her to drop her investigation. Some truths were too dangerous to learn. Meanwhile, at the Galactic Diplomatic Station, Ambassador Krell of the Altarian Federation was attending a routine trade negotiation meeting. The conference room held representatives from dozens of species, all discussing shipping routes and resource allocation agreements. The human delegation, led by Ambassador Patricia Morrison and her aide Dr. James Liu, sat quietly reviewing their notes. A young Nexarian diplomat, newly assigned to the Galactic Council, raised her hand during the discussion period. "Excuse me?" she said politely. "I'm still learning about territorial arrangements. Could someone explain human population distribution? How many worlds do they control? And what are their major population centers?" The conference room fell silent. Every conversation stopped. All eyes turned toward the human delegation table, then quickly looked away. Ambassador Patricia smiled calmly. "That information is classified for security reasons, but we appreciate your interest in learning about human society." "I don't understand," the young Nexarian continued innocently. "Every other species shares basic demographic data. It helps with trade planning and resource allocation estimates. Why would population numbers be classified?" An older Nexarian diplomat quickly moved to the younger one's side. "Please excuse my colleague," he said hurriedly. "She's still learning proper diplomatic protocols." He pulled the younger diplomat away, whispering urgently. Ambassador Krell could hear fragments of their conversation. "Never ask about human numbers. Dangerous information. Stick to approved discussion topics." The meeting resumed, but Ambassador Krell noticed how carefully the other delegates phrased their questions. Around the human representatives, they discussed trade goods, cultural exchange programs, and shipping schedules. But no one asked about military strength, territorial expansion, or population growth. Those topics were somehow forbidden, though no official rule had ever been established. After the meeting, Ambassador Krell walked through the station corridors with his aide, Dr. Velathorn. They passed groups of alien delegates who nodded politely when they encountered the human representatives, but maintained careful distances. Conversations stopped when humans approached and resumed after they passed. "The unspoken rules are so deeply ingrained now," Dr. Thorne commented quietly. "Sometimes I wonder if the younger generation even remembers why we maintain these protocols." "The system works because we don't talk about why it works," Ambassador Krell replied. "The moment someone asks too many questions or digs too deeply into the reasons, they discover things that can't be undiscovered. Ignorance isn't just bliss in this case. It's psychological survival." They watched as Ambassador Patricia and Dr. Liu walked past a group of junior diplomats from various species. The aliens stepped aside politely, making room in the corridor, but their body language showed subtle signs of unease. Not fear exactly, but a deep instinctive awareness that maintaining distance was somehow important. Dr. Liu noticed the reaction and stopped. "Excuse me," he said to the group with genuine concern. "Are we making you uncomfortable? We don't want to cause any problems." The junior diplomats all assured him that everything was fine, that they were just showing proper diplomatic courtesy. Dr. Liu smiled and thanked them, then continued walking with his ambassador. He never noticed the collective sigh of relief that followed his departure. "That's what makes it so effective," Dr. Thorne observed. They genuinely don't understand why other species react that way. Their kindness and concern for others just reinforces the psychological impact. Back at the mapping consortium, Zara had finally found the answers she had been seeking. But the knowledge came with a price she hadn't anticipated. The classified expedition reports had shattered her worldview in ways that couldn't be repaired. She understood now why the map stopped at the red line, why her mentor had warned her to drop her investigation, and why the entire galaxy had agreed to maintain the fiction that human space was simply unmapped territory. The truth was too terrible to acknowledge openly. Humans weren't evil or hostile. They were helpful, kind, and generous to everyone they met. But their idea of normal daily life was so fundamentally incompatible with the psychological needs of other species that prolonged contact caused permanent trauma. The blank space on the maps wasn't empty because humans were dangerous enemies. It was empty because humans were dangerous friends. Zara spent the next week trying to return to her normal work routine, but she found herself unable to concentrate on standard mapping assignments. Every time she looked at a star chart, her eyes were drawn to that red line and the terrible knowledge of what lay beyond it. She had gotten the answers she wanted, but now she understood why some questions should never be asked. The galaxy had developed an elaborate system of protective ignorance that allowed peaceful coexistence with humanity, while preventing the psychological damage that came from too much knowledge about human society. Diplomats learned to ask only approved questions. Explorers learned to avoid certain territories. Cartographers learned to leave certain spaces blank. And most importantly, young scientists learned not to ask why. The system worked perfectly, as long as everyone agreed not to examine it too closely. The moment someone started digging for answers, they discovered truths that couldn't be forgotten or ignored. Zara had joined the ranks of those who knew too much, who carried the burden of understanding why the galactic maps would always show empty space where human territory should be. She looked at her workstation one final time, at the star charts, with their careful blank spaces and their protective red lines. Then she quietly submitted her resignation and requested transfer to a research station in the galactic core, as far from human space as possible. Some boundaries, she now understood, weren't meant to be crossed. Some mysteries were meant to remain unsolved, and some truths were too dangerous to share, even with those curious enough to seek them out. The maps would continue to show empty space beyond the red line, and most beings would never question why. That ignorance wasn't a failure of scientific curiosity. It was the galaxy's greatest diplomatic achievement.